Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paragade After Hours, a podcast where we talk about nerdy shit, video game shit, and usually something that pertains to being particularly very fucking gay. I am your host, Joe. I, of course, head up Paragade. With me this week is our lovely co-host, Mael.
Oh, hello.
So, Mael.
Yes.
I remembered this time.
Yes.
What are we drinking today?
Congratulations. We are drinking the whiskey that we bought for our anniversary.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's because we're whiskey sluts.
Yes.
We wanted to try the Nika coffee grain whiskey. It's very delicious.
It's very delicious.
And we cracked open it 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And we are almost all the way through the bottle.
Yeah,
we drank a lot of it on that first night.
Yeah, it was a particularly great night. Which, by the way, shout out to Lush. Lush, please sponsor this podcast. We're really gay. Shout out to Lush for making a bath bomb the size of a small soccer ball, and it was perhaps the best bath I've ever taken.
It was worth the $20. Like, if you consider the fact that was our Valentine's Day and our anniversary plan was to buy a $20 bath bomb, I think we came out much better than anyone else did for their Valentine's Day or anniversary.
Two gay men just going ahead and sitting in a bright pink bathtub, sipping on whiskey.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So yeah, basically we're drinking the same whiskey again because that's what we got, and It's fucking delicious.
It's really delicious. I'm drinking it without ice this time. It's still very, very smooth. It's really, really good.
I'm drinking it as a sour right now, and it is delicious.
You know? So, alright. So this week, we're going to be talking about Bayonetta, which you actually got me for our anniversary.
Yes. I ordered it, pre-ordered on Amazon for that, sweet, $15 off.
Yeah.
And originally it was it's going to come in on, February 22nd. I'm like, well, rip. But then it actually came in on time.
And that was fantastic. And particularly fantastic because it is yet another Platinum game. Granted, it is a re-release coming on my favorite console of all time, the Switch. But it's another Platinum game, and within its tradition of being Platinum games, it surprised me despite being a re-release.
It's just so extra.
So, okay. So let me describe to you kind of what surprised me here and kind of what's been the hallmark of Platinum games that I've played so far. Because I played Revengeance, I played Nier Automata, I've played Bayonetta for the PC, and of course I played a lot of other Hideki Kamiya's work. So I played Beautiful Joe, I played Devil May Cry, and I played Okami. So I played a lot of his works, and the other thing that I've kind of noticed that is kind of a hallmark within Platinum that is not really a hallmark in a lot of other game titles is this attention to accessibility.
Yeah.
Because starting up my gameplay of Bayonetta 1 for the Switch, it's okay, which, by the way, so for the most, really big, kind of tentpole releases for the Switch, you notice how they always release, a 15-minute fucking instructional video for these games?
Yeah.
It's you had it for Breath of the Wild, you had it for ARMS, you had it for Splatoon, you had it for fucking Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, finish that review. I'm going to be posting that.
Finally.
Finally. Anyway, so, they had those 15-minute long kind of, instructional videos about, here's how you play the game, and here's what we did with it, and here's how we incorporate HD Rumble. And it's okay, who cares, but whatever, I'm going to pick up the game anyway. Bayonetta didn't have that. And the first few minutes I started up, it has, the tutorial showing you how to use the controls, and it's oh, by the way, here's the touch controls. So if you're playing in portable mode, all you have to do is do this gesture across the screen, and if you're playing in easy mode, it does automatic fighting for you. So it goes ahead and does this and does it stylishly. So it coming off Nier Automata, where it had that auto mode, which was still very good and still very responsive, and then coming into this of being like, oh shit.
Yeah. Can I say that kind of almost sounds like what Hideki Kamiya wanted for Okami?
Yes.
And that if Okami came to Switch, it would be just like that. And like you just kind of listen to how you describe it for Bayonetta. I'm just like, that would be what Okami for the Wii should have been, because that game is a fucking mess on the Wii.
Those horrible touch controls.
Yeah. So like, just imagine, well, it's not touch controls,
motion controls.
It was motion controls.
Yeah.
But imagine if those motion controls for Okami became touch controls, and then everything just became instantly better in your mind. Yeah, so basically, So for the Switch re-release, they actually introduced this new feature. Yes. This interesting new feature that honestly is something that can be used in other games. And like you said, it actually kind of makes it easier for you.
Exactly.
So it's this step up in accessibility that is something that I think Platinum's not necessarily known for, but that Platinum does and thinks about.
Yes, and especially in their recent releases, it's like, I can't speak too much for Metal Gear Rising just because it's been such a long time since I played that game. I had to go back and revisit it, but like, especially for Nier Automata, the latest releases of Bayonetta, I believe like there was another title. It was like the fucking like sliding on your knees game, and it goes in slow motion. I forget, but it was like, I know the main character was voiced by Steve Blum, and he wears a power suit, and he's a scientist, and he smokes, and he's basically a rock star, and I was just kind of like, this is the most Platinum thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah, Platinum's known for outrageous,
over the top.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that Platinum is known for outrageousness, but really what I know them for is this interesting depth of accessibility.
Yes.
So, this is something that I feel very strongly about, in that I believe that games should be playable to all people.
Right.
And I think Platinum Games is one of the bigger companies that truly understands that concept. So, going from Nier Automata, because that's what I know more.
Yeah.
Nier Automata allows you to play on easy, normal, hard mode, basically.
Yes.
And the easiest mode is very, very nice to play with. You still feel like you have a lot of control, but basically the battle becomes automated.
Yeah.
And when you enter those arena style battles, you're not having to worry about dying. You can just feel like you're doing some badass moves and you're getting through the storyline. And considering the fact that Nier Automata has such a long storyline, to get through endings A through E on hard mode would be something that I think even you would give up on, Joe. Like, if you were to try to get A through E endings in hard mode, I think there would come a point where you're like, I need to take a break from this.
Oh, yes.
But there was eventually a point where around, I think, before ending C, that you switched to that auto mode. And things became a lot less stressful for you. And so you could really experience this story.
Right.
That Platinum Games and Hideki Kamiya focused on this story, and they wanted you to be able to experience all of it.
They want you to experience Yoko Taro's story.
Yeah,
and they
Yoko Taro, sorry.
Yes. No, you're fine. Because, Platinum Games and Hideki Kamiya, they worked very closely with, Yoko Taro to make this game.
Yeah.
And the one thing that, it's this accessibility option, which it's obviously it's for players to experience the story, or for players who don't have all the faculties to complete this, or necessarily the skill. It benefited me as someone who is able-bodied, as someone who could still play games pretty well.
But you don't necessarily have all the time in the world.
Exactly, and that was just it. Is it made my life so much easier as an adult with things I need to do, like edit this podcast.
Yeah, well, and you played at least the first part of story on normal mode.
Right.
You know, but then there just came a point where you're like, I'm doing the same thing over again. I need to take a break from that. And you went to auto mode. And, you know, you still got to experience everything that you wanted to.
Right.
But you could have, you got through it in a pace that was reasonable for you.
Right.
But then also just even... it's not just having easy, normal, and hard mode in auto. It's also, you know, this game also included having control change systems. So if the certain control scheme does not work out for you, you can easily go into the options menu and change it.
Yes.
You can pretty much change a lot of things, going from the layout of the control system
to even the HUD.
Yeah, to even the HUD. And I think that is so important for accessibility and letting people control their own mode of difficulty. Not everyone wants to play on super hard mode. And if you want to play on super hard mode, like I do with Breath of the Wild, I'm playing master mode and like professional HUD right now.
Yeah.
But I don't have to if I don't want to.
Exactly. It's the matter of just giving you options like that. It's a matter of just like going ahead and being like, you know, here is the option. Because the whole thing is like, I feel like when they were playtesting Nier Automata, when they found out that, like, you know, one, it's like this Steel Katera story, and we want to tell this because, one, Platinum Games is known for making good gameplay games. Like, they're known for making games that feel good.
Yeah.
And then it's like you got Yoko Taro, and it's like he's known for making games that emotionally feel wonderful, terrible, and everything in and of itself.
Yeah.
And
so they struck this balance between this feeling good gameplay and this emotionally intense story.
Exactly. And when it came to like, which by the way, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and say like a blanket statement. If you listen to Paragade After Hours, spoilers. Anyway, so with the first ending, like, you know, you go through 2B story, and then it's like, oh, you know, it's 9S has died or whatever, but no, he's actually in, like, the Android network, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, you play through 9S's side of the story, which is the exact same story as 2B,
but it's a different gameplay.
It's a different gameplay, and for lack of better words, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I love 9S, I think he's a wonderful boy.
Yeah.
But God, it's like you go from like Bayonetta, Dante like had a fucked up flipper baby and that was 2B, and then you go to like 9S and it's just like, hey, do you like a heavy attack? Yeah? Too bad! Time for a hacking minigame!
Yeah, time for, you know, bullet hell. So the thing is that, regardless of how you feel about that, the game gives you the control
it gives me the option to go ahead and be like, fuck this, I just don't really want to deal with it, I want to see the story.
Yeah.
And I can go ahead and turn on that mode and be like, you know, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just go through this then.
Yeah. And so as far as Bayonetta goes, how do they do it in that case?
So in this case here, I haven't messed around too much with the auto mode, just because with Bayonetta, unlike Nier Automata, like, it doesn't retread the same ground over and over again.
Yeah.
For this game, like, from what I tried it in my limited experience, it's still, like very similar to how, Nier Automata do it. I'm playing right now in easy mode, just so that way, instead of very easy mode, but it still has that automatic, like, sort of functionality to it. And it's pretty responsive. I feel like if I go to very easy and I start doing the touch controls, it'll be a lot more responsive.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good, and it adds, like, that depth of, like, still interactability where it makes me feel like I'm doing something, as opposed to just, like, you know, like an MMO where it's just, like, I'm clicking on something, and then, like, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is that touch screen control allows you to kind of immerse yourself just a little bit more, rather than pressing a button to activate an auto.
Exactly. So, with that being said, like, it's been a pretty good experience, like, as far as, like, from the limited experience I've had. And I'm really happy that they added this to, quite frankly, like an 8-year-old game at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have to. They could have just ported over, like, you know, the original Bayonetta and said, fuck it, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, we're adding in, like, Switch controls, we're adding in, like, all these controls to it, and we're adding these options in order to make it basically a better game for this console.
Yeah, and these are things that nobody talks about, but I think are just so super important.
Right.
Because, you know, so real talk, I'm not a huge fan of Platinum's gameplay.
Mm.
I'm not a big fan of the you walk around until you're put in an arena and then you fight the monsters and then you move on your way. Like, you know, all these games that, you know, we're kind of talking about generally, like Okami and Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and Nier Automata, you usually walk around until you find yourself in, like, you know, an arena. Like, a circle appears and now you're fighting in this circle and then you go on. I feel like that always, like, makes me feel like I'm shifting from basic exploration to basic, like, battle mode.
Yeah.
You know, I don't ever feel like I'm, like, flowing easily into these things. And so it's just kind of jarring for me, and it's not something that I quite like as a gameplay. But I really do like the stories that these games offer. I really, really liked Okami's story.
Yeah.
But, Joe, as you know, there came a point where I just gave up on Okami as, like, the gameplay itself.
It's a long-ass game.
I thought that I had hit the end, and then there was, like, a whole nother, like, level I had to play through, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore, no, Joe, I'm done, and I haven't touched it in, like, 2 years. I really want to try to pick it back up, because I love the story. I really, really do love that story, but the gameplay just really drags on for me, and so to see games like Bayonetta, the newer, you know, remasters of Bayonetta, and Nier Automata, to say, if you are not a fan of this gameplay, you don't have to be to experience our story. You can play on auto mode. You can play on easy mode without auto mode. You can adjust the controls as you please. You can do whatever you want to make the gameplay itself feel satisfying without compromising the story. And so, you know, I like that, because now someone like me who may not mesh with Platinum Games' usual gameplay, I can still enjoy really, really great interactive stories, because Nier Automata is a story worth experiencing. You know, Okami is a story worth experiencing. And if it's not your jam to play through the gameplay in like 70 fucking hours, you don't have to.
And that's why I'm also kind of sad that, like, Okami is not being handled by Platinum Games anymore. It's being handled by Capcom. Which, it's like, I feel like if Platinum were to get their hands back on Okami,
they would have done the same thing that they did with Bayonetta.
Exactly. They would have been like, you know, let's introduce accessibility controls. Let's go ahead and introduce controls which make the story go by a little bit smoother. Let's go ahead and fix this up so that way we correct those problems. The problem with, like, Capcom's re-release of Okami, like, every single time has always been, like, you know, they don't address the problems within Okami.
They basically just re-release it.
They make it prettier, and they make it so that it's like, oh, it looks better on an HD screen. It's like, I that's not the problem. It looked pretty to begin with.
Which, if you notice, that's actually a trend with Capcom, is that they just kind of don't give a shit.
Okay, I'm gonna correct you there, because they kind of give a shit?
Kind of.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate right here.
Okay.
So, I recently listened to Waypoint, which, by the way, I just started listening to Waypoint. A+. It's like, I kind of really like it. But anyway, they were talking about the trend of, like, Capcom for the past 2 years, which is kind of funny, because what happened was, like, 2 years ago, they announced Resident Evil 7 at E3. Nobody heard of Resident Evil 7 before that, released in January of that year. Last year, they announced Monster Hunter World, released in January of this year. And both times, they rekindled what captured, like, everybody about these series to begin with. Granted, Monster Hunter World, I hate to sound like this fucking hipster. It's like, it's basically Monster Hunter for the 3DS, but prettier. But it's just like, you know, now it's like all those plebs who don't own a 3DS can go ahead and be like, I'm gonna play this game now. It's like, oh wow, this game's fucking awesome. It's like, I've been telling you this for the past 6 years. But, like, that's been, like, sort of the trend for Capcom, is that, like, they seem to give, like, certain series kind of like this attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, and also it's the newer games that they're also giving this attention to detail. You know, Resident Evil 7 and, you know, Monster Hunter World are their newest in these franchise.
But meanwhile, they milk like the old releases and like re-release.
You mean like Mega Man?
You mean like Mega Man?
You mean
like Resident Evil 4? You mean like Okami?
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've seen a Resident Evil 4 re-release, and it's literally like the only thing that's different is like kind of nicer graphics. Like not even
nicer graphics.
Not even better graphics, because like let's be real, Resident Evil 4 was very dreary looking, and it's really hard to improve on those graphics.
It's really hard to improve, and then like the only re-release I bought of Resident Evil 4 was for the Wii, because my dad really wanted it. It was like, and he didn't want to admit, he was like, that game looks interesting. And he's like, I have a Wii for my wife, and she uses it for Wii Fit, but you know what, I'm not gonna buy this game.
Fucking course that she used it for Wii Fit.
Of course
I can't, like I never thought about realizing why they had a Wii, but now that I know, like, I'm just like, oh, yeah, that sounds like something that she totally bought into.
So anyway, like, Dad was just kind of like, you want this game? And I'm like, hell yeah, I do. I never played this game before. I've heard so many good things about this game. It's like, cool. By the way, did you want this rifle attachment for the Wiimotes? No, that seems kind of impractical. Did you want this rifle attachment for the Wiimotes? Why? And actually, yes. Go ahead and buy that for me, Dad. Awesome, thank you. I mean, yes, I will get this for you, son.
That's amazing.
So he got this, and he played a little bit of it. One is that, like, I hate to say this about that, it was too scary.
It was too scary. I mean, to be fair, when I first saw that game,
fucking, like, shit my pants in, like, the fucking lake, and it's just like, hey, guess what? Here's this giant fucking monster. I'm like, fuck this. Exit.
Yeah, well, and so when I first experienced the game, the original release,
right.
My brothers were playing it, and I was like, I am not a fan. And, like, the merchant dude, I'm just like, I am all nope about that. I'm leaving the room.
Okay, I love the merchant dude.
Yeah, no, but remember, take into account of how young I must have been when that game came out.
Okay, which, by the way, so segueing back to Platinum Games, because obviously, like, you know, we're talking about, like, their games that they have touched, like Okami, which was very stylish, very, like, new, very, you know, just audacious.
Yeah.
And it's very, you know, it's very, platinum without it actually being platinum.
Yeah.
So going back to, like, kind of the games that they kind of make, and the reason why I feel like they introduce these easy modes is because they realize what their games are about. Like, they realize it's not about, like, you know, like, overcoming, like, you know, insurmountable odds. It's not about, like, you know, oh, I got the biggest gamer score or anything like that. It's like, no.
It's about the story.
It's not even about the story. It's about the style.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, I will fucking admit, Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, shit stories. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't really care. All I know is that Bayonetta looks fucking badass when she goes in and summons that fucking dragon, and then she's like, wah!
Yeah, I will say, like, you know, it when I say, like, story, I don't, like, it's story as well as the characters. I mean, you are playing Devil May Cry and freaking Bayonetta because you love freaking Dante and Bayonetta. Yeah. You know, so story, character, style, just appearance in general.
Yes.
You know, and just, like, not necessarily the gameplay, but just kicking bad guy ass.
Exactly.
Because something that, you know, regardless of what mode you were playing on, whether you're easy or hard mode, kicking ass feels good in that game.
Yeah.
No matter how much input you're having, no matter how auto or hard it is, kicking angel or demon ass feels so fucking good.
It feels so good in these games. And I feel like that's what Platinum realizes what their games are kind of about. As opposed to, like, you know, a lot of other games that I feel like just kind of don't really understand, like, you know, why do people like these games? Which kind of leads me into, of course, the camp of Dark Souls.
Yes.
So I want to discuss this because, first off, to preface this, I fucking love Dark Souls. I love this game. I can understand, like, the arguments from both sides of, like, keep it the way it is, and the other half is like, you should add an easy mode. It's like, I understand both camps, because I'm from both, in that, like, someone who champions, like, accessibility and wanting to, like, go ahead and share these games with people who may not jive with this gameplay style, or for whatever reason, like, just can't do this. It's like, I want to share this game with people, because it's so fundamental to, like, how I approach game design. And then, like, the other part of me is also, like, I understand why the game's hard. I understand why it doesn't compromise on that difficulty, and it goes for soft difficulty changes with things like, you can summon another player, you can go ahead and leave hints, you can go ahead and do these sorts of things to make the game easier in a soft way, as opposed to a hard way, which is kind of how I'm going to, like, describe this. It's like, a hard way is like, you go into a menu, you select your difficulty. A soft way is like, well, you can summon this person, or you can use this item that you buy from a merchant.
I would say I might categorize this as direct and indirect.
Right.
Direct is where you are directly changing the easy mode to hard mode or whatever. You're directly affecting the difficulty, whereas indirectly would be, I'm summoning another player so that I can make things easier for myself in the long run. I am making sure I get better equipment, stuff like that. Now, I'm also going to preface that where I come from is someone who regularly plays Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing and dating sims, and if you're picking up what I'm
fucking casual.
Excuse you. So I am not a casual. I still play a lot of Zelda, I play a lot of Mario, I do.
Okay, I'm gonna say that was a joke. I'm sorry. I'm not actually a neckbeard, please.
Fuck you. So, I play a lot of a variety of other games that don't necessarily involve fighting. Though, like, I definitely do play a lot of, like, JRPGs and stuff like that do involve fighting, like Rune Factory, but I don't necessarily focus on, let's say, skill-based gaming. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't really focus on skill-based gaming. I focus more on reward-based gaming. So, like Harvest Moon, I am playing this game because I am searching for that end goal of meeting my husbando and, living happily ever after with all of my cows. I don't necessarily want to show off my skill, even though I have plenty of skill in Harvest Moon, Animal Parade. But, so I'm bad at Dark Souls.
Right.
For very obvious reasons. And I don't necessarily like Dark Souls for that sense. But what I do like Dark Souls for is the story that it does tell. I think the lore that you find that you find through the environments is so incredibly interesting. And the fact that, like, Bloodborne, you get to kind of see these ruins and learn about, what's going on, or in, Dark Souls, where you pick up an item and
you get this whole description, this whole story even.
Yeah, like, I like that stuff, but I can't experience it because I'm not good enough, with heavy quotations. I haven't gotten good, and therefore I don't deserve to know what's going on with this, unless I'm going through and just watching YouTube videos, but that's not the same thing as experiencing a game. So, when it comes to, like, Dark Souls, it's like, I come from it at the perspective of, like, someone who, quote unquote, is good. Yeah. It's like, I am, quotation marks, good at Dark Souls. In heavy quotations, because you almost always play with friends. I almost always play with friends, and even, like, the instances where I do go by myself, I find myself not enjoying it as much as when I do play with other people. That probably will change with, like, the portability of, like, Dark Souls Remastered.
But that being said, like I realize that there's this kind of thrill of just being like, oh, I'm gonna be good, or I'm gonna get good. It's like I'm gonna go ahead and go up against this guy like fucking 50 fucking times, and then next thing you know, it's like, all right, I finally beat him. And the thing is, like, when it comes to Dark Souls, especially, I understand like the reason why they wanted to go ahead and make it this kind of game. Because it's a very dreary world. It's a world built around rebirth. It's a world built around sort of like this kind of bashing your head against a wall. Because that's the whole story. It's like, this civilization bashing its head against a wall, being like, we need to stave off this darkness. We need to stave this off. And eventually they kind of do, or they don't, depending on your ending. Who fucking cares? But basically, it's like, it fits in with the themes of the story. It fits in with the themes that I feel like, Miyazaki wanted to tell. And I understand that, and I get that. But at the same time, I also feel like, while Miyazaki wanted to go ahead and tell this story, and tell the story about, like, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not redundant, but kind of, hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of optimism of, like, no, I can do this. As long as I put my mind to it, I can do this. Is that, like, even if you were to put an easy mode in Dark Souls, like, the hypothetical easy mode, there are things you could trade off from, like, the general, quote-unquote, normal mode that would still make it, quote-unquote, hard for people who choose easy mode. So, it's like, you choose easy mode, it's like, you can't summon other people. You also can't get invaded. Also, there are less enemies here. But the enemies are not de-leveled. They will still cause the same amount of damage that they would do. It's like they still will act the same way that they would have in normal mode. There's just less of them.
Yeah.
It's like you can go ahead and do that. And like those players who would still have trouble, say, like, going through Undead Asylum, and then they come against like the fucking Grave Demon.
Yeah.
It's like they'll still have trouble against the Grave Demon.
Yeah.
But getting up to that point, they will have less of a trouble, and maybe that would encourage them. It's like you're still giving like this sort of thematic element of like, no, this game's still hard for you, and that's okay if it's hard for you, but it still reinforces the themes I feel like Miyazaki would want to tell. I think what Miyazaki fails to understand is that someone else's difficulty may not be the same as someone else's.
Yeah. Well, and there's also a lot of ways to incorporate, an easy mode that doesn't compromise on those themes. Like, maybe instead of summoning other friends,
right,
you just automatically have, like, some other, like, AI, like, help you out. You know...
They have that already in the game.
Well, but, like, you know, there's a lot, like, easier ways, or, there's so much variety that you can do, even from, what Nier Automata does,
right,
which is allowing automatic modes. One thing that we had at once discussed was, what if there was, like, kind of something like an automatic rolling or something like that? I'm not saying that, like, there's a perfect system.
Right.
I'm saying that there's a wide variety of systems that could be put in place that can still make Dark Souls feel challenging.
Right.
But also be the right level of difficult for multiple people.
Exactly.
For a wide variety of people. You can lower the difficulty and it will still be difficult for people. But I also just I like the idea of maybe just a story mode. Maybe there are some things that just aren't accessible in story mode, but story mode, you can have this chance to explore the lore a little bit more. I don't think that we have to compromise on the theme to let more people experience your game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, looking at interviews from Miyazaki, looking at how he discusses, like, how Dark Souls feels, it's like, I feel like he's coming from the right place in that, like, I know what he's going after.
Yeah.
It's just that there are a bunch of different ways you can come at that. And granted, like, the other thing I also kind of want to say is, like, as much as I want everybody to experience games the way I do, I also understand that, like, some games just may be exclusionary. It's like, not everybody can box. Not everybody can play football.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. Granted, video games are so fucking different because they're, like, a thematic experience.
Yeah.
And that, it creates this whole kind of conundrum of, like, whether or not something can be exclusionary and thematic at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's a question that it's like I struggle with when it comes to, like, one of my favorite series, like, the Soulsborne series, because I'm like, I want people to experience this and I understand, like, why the creator chose it this way, but at the same time I still view it as a game, and then it comes back around to that.
Yeah. The way that I kind of see it is that, yeah, there may be games that just are exclusionary. Just like how, there's some people who are just not into genres.
Right.
And there are people who are just not going to play genres. If
right.
you never play a Harvest Moon game, that's fine. Your thing.
Yeah.
Like games, there's genres, there's diversity in games.
Right.
And just like that, there's games that are more exclusive to a certain brand of people, basically.
Right.
But
we
should. But what I'm saying is that we should still have these conversations,
right.
regardless.
Exactly.
We should still broach the topic of, should there be, a diverse way to play this game? Because I think in the end, I'm not necessarily saying that it must be a requirement that Dark Souls incorporate had a quote-unquote easy mode.
Right.
Easy mode, but basically, when a developer thinks, I know, I did the thing. When a developer thinks about accessibility in mind, there may come a lot of other things that they might
right.
realize. So, for instance, we're talking about just easy mode versus hard mode versus normal mode.
Right.
But what if, in this discussion of accessibility, developer realizes that they should be allowing options for text size in their game.
Right.
So that way when people are reading subtitles, some people who have worse vision can up the size of the text so that they can see it better.
Right.
Developing kind of like Nier Automata does, the ability to change around the control scheme so that they can play it one-handed if they needed
right.
to. I'm not saying that every game ever invented must have an easy mode or a hard mode, or every game must be inclusive. That's just not possible.
Right.
But I think that opening up this discussion and making developers think about this allows for them to think about other things when it comes to accessibility.
Exactly.
That they would then start thinking about in their pre-production phase, in the development phase.
Right.
And things that are quality of life experiences, but
right.
also just, even beyond that, interesting, fun experiences, like with Breath of the Wild and Nier Automata. You can turn off aspects of the HUD if you want
right.
to. The interface doesn't have to be the same for everyone.
It doesn't.
Some people can increase their difficulty of the game and therefore increase their immersion and enjoyment in the game by removing certain aspects of the HUD. And that would be more fun to see in other games. Imagine, like, if in Breath of the Wild, you can pretty much just turn off everything and just roam around without a map. Imagine being able to do that in other games. How much more fun that would be, like, in, like...
Well, I mean, that's basically what people mostly do with, like, the PC versions of, like, every Bethesda game. It's
yeah.
like, they'll go ahead and edit out, like, literally everything.
Yeah, and so when we're thinking about these accessibility things, we're not just talking about easy mode to hard mode. We're talking about a huge...
An array.
Yeah, an array of really cool, interesting things that you could do to your game that a lot of developers just don't think about.
Right.
But we could be thinking about instead, and it's putting these ideas into developers' head, not necessarily expecting them to change their ways. I'm not expecting, Dark Souls to become easy and accessible for everyone. I know that's probably not going to
Right.
happen. I just think that there could be a lot more interesting things that could be done when developers think about accessibility in their gaming.
Right. And so far, like, Platinum has been pretty A+ about this.
Yeah, like, there's been so many cool things because Nier Automata is just, like, so open about accessibility.
And not only that, it's like even their latest releases, like, say, you know, the Bayonetta re-release. It's like, hell fucking yeah. So, kind of moving away from, like, the accessibility discussion, as much as I know, like, that's the big, like, I would say that's, like, the meat of the episode.
Yeah. Well, it's also just, like, my jam.
Yes. Just talking about, like, you know, Platinum games in general, and just talking about, like, you know, their style. Like, you know, like, you don't much play the Platinum games, but you've watched me play, you know, at least 5 different ones at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's so over the top. It's so, like, it leans so hard into, like, you know, these fucking, like, tropes of, like, you know, whether male, female, in between. It's like, it doesn't matter. We fucking lean into this, and we're like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we're gonna make it look cool. Like, because I've seen a lot of discussion about, like, and I mean, this is, like, Tumblr discussion, so I'm not gonna, like, say, like, you know, this is, like, hashtag, like, professional discussion, but, like, a lot of people who discuss, like, you know, Bayonetta versus, like, Devil May Cry, a lot of people are just like, you know, well, I like Devil May Cry better because they had a better story, and I'm sitting there like, what fucking story?
Yeah.
Like, because there was never any real setting. It was just like, you know, okay, Dante and Virgil, like, fucking sold out his brother. Again, it's so kind of forgettable.
White hair boys, that's all I think of.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I think about is, like, how fucking smarmy and fucking smartass that Dante was. Mm-hmm. And that's what sticks in my mind. And with Bayonetta, it's kind of the same thing. It's like Bayonetta is a smart-ass, fucking, like, sexy, like, you know, just, like, you know, femme fatale, but is the protagonist sort of thing. And I'm like, she is the male version of Dante.
Yeah.
Like, she is literally the male version of Dante. And it, like, whenever I see people kind of, like, criticize that, I'm just kind of like, did you really play Bayonetta? Or are you kind of hampered by, like, by the fact that she has a vagina?
Yeah, and a lot of hair.
And a lot of hair. She's a hairy girl.
Ugh.
But anyway, like, playing this game and just reliving, like, how over the top it is. And the other thing is, like, you know, they give her the same kind of treatment that they would give basically a male protagonist. They lean very hard into her being a badass. They lean very hard into her being, like, you know, she's on top of her shit.
And when they introduce, like, a child character in the game, she's just like, oh no, I'm not having any of this. I'm not the motherly type, like, literally pointing in your face of, like, she's literally just a regular woman who just likes, you know, sex appeal and shit like that. Like, she's not like,
listen, other people call me mommy, and you probably shouldn't call me that.
Yeah, like, it's not like another game where when, you know, faced with a child, the female, you know, like, character
cradles them.
Yeah, the female character becomes motherly. It's like, no, I'm still the same person. We're not changing any of that because we've introduced a child here. Nope, I am still a badass.
It's like, I'm still a badass. And also, hey, sweet child of mine, guess what? I'm gonna go ahead and kill some angels right in front of your face. And also, if this traumatizes you, who cares? Also, if this inspires you to kill angels, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So, like, the fact that she is still, like, the same kind of character that I feel like Platinum would have made regardless is so good. And it's so, like, you know, like, recently we've seen a lot of developers, you know, pivot on this, and they've gone ahead and made, like, better female characters. Like, the one who comes to mind is Alloy from, you know, what fuck? What's the game with the, we can't with the headcanon that she's, like, trying to...
Oh, you're talking about,
Horizon Zero Dawn!
Yeah.
Yes, Horizon Zero Dawn. Alloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. You know, like, she is a much more capable character, oddly enough, voiced by Ashley Birch, who also voiced, like, fucking Chloe from, like, you know, Life is Strange.
Who is also just badass in general.
Exactly. So we've seen like these characters who are just multifaceted, who are still like multi-dimensional, as opposed to like, you know, kind of like being, because like I feel like, you know, we had like the mid-aughts like, you know, fucking stereotype where it was like, you know, you had the badass female character who was just like, you know, I'm gruff, burn bras, and then they would just be like, oh, I'm a motherly type.
They do this about face where they're like, oh yes, I am a badass woman, but I'm also a mother, and it's like, we don't have to do that. You can just have a woman be like not you don't have to have a woman who is automatically motherly, just like you can have men who are not automatically like
fathers.
Yeah, or just automatic dude bros. Like, we already know that there's a diverse range of male characteristics. Let's accept the fact that there's a diverse range of female characteristics.
Exactly.
That gender is a spectrum, and that, you know, gender roles are bullshit.
And the fact that Bayonetta kind of like, you know, it like goes into this, and of course, like, I can't talk about Bayonetta without talking about how gay it is.
Oh, yeah, no, it's super lesbians.
Like, it's super lesbians, and it's super, like, I look at her, and I'm like, I want to be you.
You know.
I want to be you.
So honestly, like, yeah, just all the times that Joe and I have been, like, you know, Joe's been playing this game, and, like, both of us just erupt into work it. Yes, girl, do a turn. Yeah. Like, you know... But really, the thing that I was just thinking about just now is that the only difference between Bayonetta and Devil May Cry is hair color.
Yes.
And angels/demons.
Holy shit!
That's it. It's the
this
color.
This is Hideki Kamiya's fucking fuck you to Capcom.
Yeah, no. So this is what it is. It's like the characters, the main character's hair color is different.
We cracked the code!
And one is fighting demons and the other is fighting angels. Other than that, there is no other difference.
There's literally no other... Oh my god. Holy shit, we cracked the code. We did it. Probably someone cracked this code like 10 fucking years ago when Bayonetta first came out, but who cares? We did it.
Yeah. We got there. We got there.
We got there. Hell yeah. Hashtag 2018. We finally got there. Paragade. After hours. Hell yeah.
So, do we have any other games to talk about, Joe?
So, okay. We're going to talk about a bit of news here in our last, like, I would say 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Because we're probably going to get into this.
We got two things to get into.
Okay. So, I'm going to talk to you about Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Yes.
So, as you know, I've been listening a little bit more to Waypoint.
Yes.
Which, to preface this, it's like, hey, y'all. This is Paragade After Hours. This is Joe speaking. Joe speaking kind of just by himself. I'm queer as fuck. I'm also left-leaning as fuck. Usually.
Oh my god. Is it a gay who is also a liberal?
Holy shit!
That never happens.
That never happens. Anyway, so Waypoint is on that same kind of spectrum. So if you've listened to Waypoint and you're just kind of like, fuck that. It's like, I'm just going to say bail out here. As we get more and more episodes, it's going to get more and more gay and liberal, and eventually it's just going to become like a rainbow-colored fucking, like, you know, album cover for, like, the podcast.
Joe, we literally have a rainbow flag right behind us.
I get that. Anyway, point is, while listening to Waypoint, they were talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance, which, to be fair, I haven't heard much of, like, before the podcast, just because I, like, you know, I browse Polygon, I browse, like, you know, every other gaming news site. I'm just like, okay, this game's out. It sounds like a janky, like, European mess.
Yeah, well, it basically, all we knew about it before this was that there was this game, it came out, here it is. And, like, you know, there wasn't much, like, pomp and circumstance around it.
There really wasn't.
We just knew that
it existed.
Yeah.
So when I listened to this podcast and they started talking about it, they were like, it's a hugely successful Steam game, and it's a hugely successful indie Steam game. It sold over like 500,000 copies within like a week. It's by those standards of just being on Steam alone is pretty successful. And it was a Kickstarted game. It happened in around 2014. And the reason why Waypoint in particular, who is kind of partnered with Vice, they refused to cover this game, like aside from the podcast that they made, because of the creative director, the lead creative director, whose name is, let me look at my magical.
And he's also the founder of the company.
Yes, Czech-born Kingdom Come developer Daniel. I apologize if I mispronounced his name. Everybody deserves to have their name pronounced correctly. Daniel Vravra he is kind of a very public, at the time, Gamergate supporter.
Yes.
So, at his E3 presentation, he had, like, this hashtag-based, basement-dwelling, like, non-snowflake type t-shirt you can see right here.
Oh, yeah, hashtag based.
Yeah, you can't really make out, like, the rest of the words, but I remember, like, Waypoint discussing it, and they were just like, yeah, no, it has, like, every fucking slur we've ever used against, like, white nationalists ever. So, he has been a very staunch Gamergate supporter, and even when he did his, sort of quote-unquote apology, he defended, like, Gamergate was about freedom of journalism, freedom of speech, freedom of games being, like, politically biased.
Yes.
Yes, the wholehearted defense of these fucking basement-dwelling white nationalist supporters.
So really, the way that I stand on that is that it does not matter what Gamergate, quote-unquote, may have originally been about.
No.
If it was originally about freedom of press, well, that's not the result of it.
No, it's really not. It just got completely associated with misogyny, racism,
transphobia,
homophobia.
We'll go down the list, but basically it resulted in the doxing and brutal attacking of women in gaming.
Right. So, obviously, like, publications like Waypoint, like Polygon, like Kotaku had questions about Kingdom Come Deliverance. In particular, when the game was in development, they asked, like, will there be characters of color in this game? And their defense was, like, there was no black people or people of color in, like, what later became the Czech Republic during that time of medieval Europe, so we're not going to put them in there. And then, as people press them about, like, there's little to no records of that, and at most, they were very biased against the church or politics, so how can you say that? And they were like, well, while there was no proof that there was black people there or people of color there, it's like, there's no proof that they weren't, so we're not going to include them.
Yeah, so basically, if you know a lot about European history, you would know that
people migrated.
Well, no, migration is a term, but also during the Roman Empire times, there were a lot of black slaves.
Yes.
Unabashedly, we'll just say this right off the bat. There were a lot of slaves of different colors that were in the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire became very large at one point before it was dispersed. So, over the course of, like, the entirety of written European history, there have been people of color thrown into the mix, regardless of whether or not they wanted to be there. Now, whether or not there were actual written records of very specific black people or very specific, insert person here.
Right.
European history has always had
a white-leaning, if you will.
Yeah, it's always been white-leaning, but there's always been more people in that mix.
So they kind of use this sort of, like, defense of, like, oh, we want realism, and also, like, this is a story about one dude in this war, and we're just going to tell the story of this nobody, and it's not going to have a whole lot to do with, like, the Pope and anything, like, that was going on during this time, blah, blah, blah. And then the game opens up in the first 3 hours with you, like, throwing shit on a Pope supporter. So...
Literal shit?
Literal shit! Actual shit. Which, by the way, it's like, when I was listening to Austin Walker describe this, like, and this is where kind of the main meat of, like, this discussion comes from, is that the game's good. The game, mechanically, and even somewhat in, like, the tone and stuff that it has, is good. And what I kind of compare this to is, like, Ender's Game. I remember reading Ender's Game, like, when I worked at a used bookstore. Like, I loved that book. Like, it was so revolutionary to me, and I was like, holy shit, this is the foundation for most of, like, sci-fi shit that I've, like, taken in. Like, this was, like, the inspiration for things like Neon Genesis Evangelion, and then I found out that Orson Scott Card is a fucking shithead. And it was so, like, I wouldn't say, like, devastating for me, but it made me realize, like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, so now we come to the point of discussion of, can you and should you and will you separate the creator from their work?
So, of course, like, games are different than, say, like, a book. Like, for Orson Scott Card's, like, Ender's Game, it's like, obviously, buy that used. He doesn't see any of that money.
And he is the sole creator of that series.
But when it comes to Kingdom Come Deliverance, and Waypoint went really in depth on this, is that, like, this is a team of, like, hundreds, like 180 person team, I think it was.
Yeah.
And, you have people of many different backgrounds who may not believe the same fucking shit that this guy is spewing.
They just needed a paycheck.
They needed a paycheck, or they needed something on their resume to go ahead and apply to another company.
Yeah.
It's like, they needed a completed game to go ahead and put that on there.
Yeah. Or you think about, to reference something else, Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And his work.
Yeah.
Do you support Bill Cosby's work, or do you boycott, anything
that has to do with it?
Yeah, anything that has to do with him simply because of the things that he has done.
Yeah, or... God, what was that fucking latest director?
Harvey.
Yes, Harvey Weinstein. Like, any of his work, do you just completely, boycott that, or do you support the creators? Like, I mean, granted, it's like, some of the creators who were touched by Harvey Weinstein, like, Kevin Smith, who actively said, no, fuck that. Any, like, royalty checks I get from them, I'm donating to a women advocacy group. Yeah. But it's like, for some of those creators who are working on Kingdom Come Deliverance, that's a much different field. It's like, they don't have that liberty of saying, like, I'm going to donate, like, this part of my paycheck to this fucking advocacy group. It's more like, no, I need that paycheck to pay rent.
Yeah. I feel like, where I feel about this is that when it comes to, can you separate the creator from the work?
Right.
And should you? I really think that comes down to the person.
Yeah.
I think that your opinion of whether or not you should buy Kingdom Come Deliverance, or whether you should watch the Bill Cosby show.
Right.
To compare those two, even though they may be apples and oranges.
Right.
If you feel like you can't watch the Bill Cosby show, but you can buy Kingdom Come Deliverance, that's what you have decided.
Right.
And you have
that doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah, no. None of this is going to make you a bad person. And I cannot say in good faith that, if you were buying a piece of media to enjoy it, that you don't have to be burdened by the awfulness of someone who has created it or someone who has contributed to it.
Right.
You are a free person to do what you please with your own media consumption. But as for some people, it just may be harder to buy Kingdom Come Deliverance knowing that, like, a fucking white nationalist, has basically, like, made this
Put
company
his fucking, like, you know...
stamp on it.
Yeah.
You know, not only is the game his creation, as the director, but also his company. That is his company, and he is the one who's going to profit the most out of this. You know, we may be unable to separate, in this case, the creator from the content.
Right.
But if a viewer, if someone who is interested in, you know, Kingdom Come Deliverance wants to buy it,
like, we won't blame you.
Yeah, no, I won't blame you. I won't criticize you. You know, and if you say, well, his actions don't matter to me, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and also, he's a little bit more of a different case than, you know, let's say Milo Yiannopoulos. Like,
yeah.
You know, whereas I don't have proof that this guy is a neo-Nazi, but I have proof that Milo Yiannopoulos has, like,
is actually a neo-Nazi.
Is actually awful. Like, you know, and there's a difference between someone who is... There's someone who is... There's a difference between someone who is an ultra-conservative and someone who believes that a certain race of people should die, or a certain specific subset of people should die. There are differences between those two things.
Right.
And if you... And whatever you believe in and whatever you support, if you don't want to support a certain something with money because of the creator, that is your buying power, and you are entitled to your buying power just as much as I am entitled to my buying power. So I will not be purchasing this game, and neither will Joe. We probably are not going to be buying this game because we don't want to put our, you know, our money,
our queer dollars.
Yeah, we don't want to put our queer dollars towards someone who supports, you know,
a movement that has actively stamped out people like us.
Yeah, you know, even though that there are other people tied to this project, we just can't do that in good faith. But if you can do that and, you know, you want to, that's your right.
So, as a bit of, like, I guess, a journalism sort of, like, lean to this.
Yeah.
Because now you have our personal opinions. I would say, listen, as a queer person, I'm not going to buy this game because Gamergate has literally insulted me and also dehumanized people like me in every fucking, you know, way imaginable. When it comes to this game, Daniel, the lead creative director, has posted an apology about this. You can find this, like, you know, by Googling it. You can find this, like, you know, by any means. And he has apologized for a lot of his past statements before the release of Kingdom Come Deliverance. So, take that for what you will. I will say, from my personal take of it, it's very, like, you know, he leans very hard into, like, you know, Gamergate was about the freedom of press and blah, blah, blah.
That kind of what we interpret to be the empty apology. The apology that panders towards your money.
Exactly. So it's like, it's very much a, like, you know, the publisher was like, fucking apologize! And he's like, fine. And he does it. So take that for what you will. If you still buy the game, like I said, I don't judge you. Because from what I've heard, it's a very fun game.
Yeah.
If that's your jam, go buy this game, and you really don't care about that sort of stuff, cool, more power to you. Mm-hmm. But if you really care about this stuff, I strongly advise looking more into this dude. Like, looking more into what this dude is about. Because part of me is like, I don't want to give more money to this dude because I don't want to give him more opportunity to basically make a platform for himself. Yeah. I don't want him to become, like, for lack of a better words, the next Donald Trump.
That is a high, that's a lot to reach for, but I get where you're going with that.
I like, okay, like, I just don't want him to have, like, an influence on
people.
I don't want him to.
Yes.
So please, like, just keep that into consideration. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm pretty sure you're fucking queer, so please, like, and also, I understand if you think queer is a slur, but...
If you think queer is a slur, you might need to step away for this next bit. Because, Joe.
Okay. So anyway. All right.
I need to talk about something with you.
What do you need to talk about with my dearest co-host, Em?
I need to talk to you about a show that I've been recently watching, which is called Queer Eye.
Oh, yeah. We just watched a couple of... Well, we actually watched one episode. We watched one episode of that.
You watched one episode of it. I had already watched the first episode of it while you were away because I needed to. I needed to watch this. So
tell me about this, Em.
So for those of you uninformed, to catch you up, queer is a potential slur, depending on how you view it, that the gay community may or may not have been bringing back and taking back, and, you know, with things like we're here, we're queer, get over it. But one of the other ways that the gay community has taken back the word is through an early 2000s show called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which is quintessential gay television, in which the Fab Five series of gay men visit straight men, and that Velcro noise.
Oh, fuck. I forgot how loud that was.
That is very loud. So the Fab Five is five gay men that go to a straight guy and fix his life. There are different, each man of the original, you know, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy had a different specialty, and they basically fixed up the straight guy's life and improved his life through communicating emotions, communicating fashion and comfort with oneself. And usually it was through tearing this person down and then building them back up from the ground up. Queer Eye has made the return. It is now just called Queer Eye because we're inferring that not everyone who is not gay is straight.
Right.
Because gender, sexuality, and everything else are on a wonderful spectrum, and we are not going to binary this. But the new Queer Eye is a Netflix original series, and it has 5 new members, a Fab Five of Anthony the cook, Bobby the designer, Jonathan the hairstylist, Kodorama, which I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly, I may not be because of alcohol, the culturalist, and then Tan, the clothing expert. So these 5 men go into some person's life who is down on their luck, and they improve their life in every aspect in hopes that they can kind of get out of a dark place in their life and embrace a new, healthier, happier life through ways of not just through ways of finding ways to trying to think of good words, but
well, not just through materialistic gains, but just more through, like, you know, kind of like this emotional, like, listen. Like,
let's talk about what you're going through.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that
it's a very tearjerker leaning.
Yeah. Well, and that it's very tearjerker leaning. But one of the things that Queer Eye does is try to create some emotional literacy in a population of men, for the most part, who don't think of themselves as emotional.
Right.
The first 2 episodes that we watched, Joe did not watch the first one. It involved a Georgia man who, you know, was really down on his luck and, like, had, you know, 3 ex-wives, and, you know, he was
really?
he was like 57 years old. You know, and he just thought of himself as ugly, and he's like, you can't fix ugly. And then the second episode involved an Indian man who was like an app creator who really just closed himself off from everyone else. He didn't really share who he was with anyone else. And through the episodes, these 5 gay men get the story. They pull the story and the emotions out of these people and let them open themselves up and relate emotions in ways that many cis straight men
Right.
have not been allowed to, because society deems them to be too tough.
Right.
And so I went into this because I love Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. Ted Allen is my everything.
Yeah.
Ted Allen is goals. Ted Allen is everything to me. But I heard that Queer Eye was out and it was proud and I needed to experience it.
Right.
And God, I'm so in love with it. I am going to binge the rest of it tomorrow morning. I am going to get on that couch after you leave for work, Joe, and I am going to watch all of it. And then I'm going to rewatch all of it because, boy, I love the characters. I love the 5 men. They are so flamboyant, but also they're just so real. They really do want to pull out these emotions out of these men and show them that it's okay to hug and be happy and laugh and, like, just experience life and to be better.
So that was, like, one of the things I noticed from, like, the episode that I did watch, was, like, you know, this dude who was, like, you know, basically a software developer. He's a very awkward guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, he was like, haha, make awkward jokes to cover up my social anxiety. And it's just like, you know, he wasn't very much into hugging and stuff at first. And it's like, as the episode went on, it's like, of course, it's like, you know, he was like, come here for a hug, dude.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck yeah, dude. And, like, you know, just seeing, like, that kind of, like, happiness. And it's like, I'm coming at this from, like, the horrible, cynical perspective of, like, it's reality TV. Like, but at the same time, it's just, like, kind of inspiring to me. Like, because as popular culture gets more popular.
Yeah.
Like, and here's me coming from the fucking sociological perspective. It's like, as popular, like, pop culture becomes more popular, and you have something like Queer Eye, which it's on Netflix, it's one of the most popular streaming services to be there, and shows men like, you know, hey, even though that this may or may not be fake, it's okay to have emotions.
Yeah.
It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be like, come here, dude, come here for a hug.
Yeah. Well, and so the thing is that, yes, you're right, it's reality TV. And
Right.
reality TV is in essence fake, but I want you to understand, as someone who does...
No.
As someone who does love reality TV, it's real to the person watching.
That's what I mean. Is like when it comes to, like, pop culture like that, it's real to you. And the fact that, like, you know, somebody who's watching this who says like God, I hate for this to sound so condescending, but doesn't have, like, that kind of same cynical, like, outlook that I have in life.
Yeah.
But looks at it like, you know, fuck yeah, I could be more sensitive. I could be a little bit more open to exploring these feelings. Like, that's a fucking good thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just it. Is like, I understand that I'm a jaded bisexual. I get that. I am a jaded, horrible bisexual who studied sociology for 4 years of his life.
Yeah.
And I understand that, like, this is someone like me. It's like, you know, this is like popcorn media to me.
Yeah.
But, like, to someone else, it's like, no, this could be life-changing for them. And that's awesome.
Yeah. So I would say that it is both popcorn and, like, you know, life-changing for me. So to really explain to you, even though I am a trans man, I do not like dresses.
Yeah.
But my mother and I still to this day love to just turn on TLC and watch Say Yes to the Dress.
Oh, yes.
There is nothing more beautiful than sitting with a family member and just, like, being like, no, that dress looks awful. No, it just does not work. It doesn't work. And then when, you know, the woman finally comes out with the dress that's right for her, and you're just like, yes. And she, like, you know, everything comes together. The family, you know, like, you know, maybe it's like the mother who's, like, just totally tearing down everything that her daughter, you know, comes up with, you know, but it all comes together in the end, and the family agrees with her, and she's happy. You know, it's these things that I know it's not super real. I know that things are skewed in favor of good television, but good television is about a good story, and it's usually this uplifting story in that, people get over themselves and people find their happiness,
Right.
and fantasies can become reality,
Right.
and happiness can be achieved, and Queer Eye does that. You can get yourself out of a rut. You can get yourself out of a deep depression by embracing the emotions, the happy emotions that you have, by doing small things to fix your life.
Right.
And by embracing something that is gay,
Yeah.
just a little bit. By embracing
By
something
embracing things that are quote-unquote gay.
Yeah, and really what it is by embracing things that are not necessarily heteronormative.
Yeah.
Embracing sharing your emotions.
Yeah.
Having male personal relationships.
Right.
By having, by uplifting your fashion and uplifting your setting, and, you're just finding these inner peace. You can find happiness. And that, to me, I know that parts of this are fake. I know that parts of this are manufactured for television. But the story of pulling these men out of a bad rut in their life and finding true happiness through expressing their emotions more, that is so wonderful, especially for a lot of, people who need that little bit in their life. They need to pull themselves out of their own rut. I don't care that reality TV might be terrible for me. I need that little burst of happiness.
That little burst of joy.
And every time that Jonathan appears on screen and he gets that teary-eyed look in his eyes as he just does some sort of gay, holding his hands to his face, and he's just so overwhelmed with emotions. I'm overwhelmed too, Jonathan. I want to be as extra as you are.
So, just overall, I would say to kind of wrap that up.
Yes.
God, my first experience with the first episode of Queer Eye, I'm just yeah, I could get into this.
Oh man, you were gonna get into this. I'm gonna make you get into it.
So anyway, that should just about do it for this week's episode of Paragade After Hours. So where can people find you on the internet?
That's a great question. On Twitter, Twitch, and etc., I am Malacology. Soon to start posting things sometime.
Awesome. And of course, for me, you can find me on Paragade, where you can go ahead and see some of my articles. I am trying my best to go ahead and actually start posting at least once a week now, where I go ahead and post at least discussions about either games that I played or discussions about anime that I've watched. I have 2 things in the pipeline right now. One that M has to edit. The other one I am going to go ahead and start wrapping up soon. And of course, you can also find me on Twitch at Just Joe Stars. That's where I go ahead and stream once a week, sometimes more than that. And you can actually look at my schedule starting next week on Twitter at Just Joe Let's Play, where I'll go ahead and start posting my Twitter schedule, when I'm going to be posting, when I'm going to be streaming, and also this podcast. So yeah, and that just about does it. So the other thing I want to go ahead and give a shout out to is, of course, Triforth. I think that's how you say their name. And possibly for letting us use the song Sunlight Yellow Overdrive. And its wonderful jazz overtones for the opening and outro for this podcast. And as always, please tip your waiters 50%. Good night.